I was getting ready for something unexpected, a meeting with Nicholas, the boss's son. He'd reached out and asked me to meet him at a fancy restaurant near my home. As I applied a bit of makeup and carefully picked out my nicest clothes, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. You see, Nicholas was a bit of a mystery to me. He had a reputation for partying with friends and girls, something that often clashed with his dad's serious business attitude. As I stepped into the restaurant, my heart raced a little. This place was way fancier than any I'd ever been to. And there he was, seated comfortably in a chair, looking quite dashing. When our eyes met, he smiled at me, a gesture that sent fluttering feelings swirling around my stomach. I'd never been this close to him before, and his presence had my emotions in a whirl. We exchanged greetings and took our seats. With a friendly tone, he began asking me questions about my work. "So, Mia, how's everything going at the office?" he inquired. I found his voice surprisingly soothing, which helped me relax a bit. I answered, telling him about the tasks and projects I'd been handling. It felt strange but nice to have this kind of conversation with him. As we chatted about work, he seemed genuinely interested. He nodded as I spoke and followed up with more questions. "And what about that big project you were working on last month? How did that turn out?" he asked, leaning forward a bit. I found myself opening up, sharing details about the challenges and successes of that project. After a while, I mustered the courage to ask him a question of my own. "Nicholas, can I ask why you wanted to meet me here?" I felt a bit awkward, but I really wanted to know his reason for inviting me to this upscale restaurant. I couldn't believe what Nicholas was asking me. As I sat there, trying to process his words, I felt a mix of shock and anger. Here I was, expecting a normal conversation, and he drops this bomb on me. He had mentioned how his dad had been pressuring him to settle down and focus on work. I had heard rumors about his father's expectations, but hearing it from Nicholas himself made it feel real. He then revealed his plan. He wanted me to be his fake girlfriend. He believed it would help him show his dad that he was committed to changing his ways. His proposal left me stunned. The idea of fake dating someone was completely foreign to me, and the fact that he was asking me to be a part of it was beyond unexpected. His explanation did little to ease my shock. He thought I was the perfect person for this role, smart, professional, and respected at the office. But I couldn't wrap my head around the idea. I'd never been involved in something like this, and quite frankly, I had no interest in starting now. Despite his reasoning and promises of compensation, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was just wrong. It was uncomfortable, and I knew deep down that I couldn't go through with it. The whole situation was far from what I had imagined when I agreed to meet him at the restaurant. I firmly declined his proposition, even though I could sense his disappointment. Walking away from the restaurant, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: shock, confusion, and even a twinge of guilt. But I knew I had made the right decision for myself. After that shocking encounter with Nicholas, I returned home feeling a whirlwind of emotions. Little did I know that more challenges awaited me. As I stepped into the house, I immediately sensed something was off. The atmosphere felt heavy, and when I saw my mom's downcast face, I knew something was wrong. My mom had been fired from her job. My heart sank as she explained that she no longer had an income. It hit me hard because my salary was what kept our household running. But my mom had her own debt to pay, and her salary was used to manage that. Now, with no job, we were left confused and worried about how we would pay off the debt. In the following days, I returned to the office, hoping to find some normalcy amidst the chaos. However, Nicholas was nowhere to be seen. His absence added to my already jumbled thoughts and emotions. I couldn't help but wonder if my refusal had caused this. A week later, our situation took a turn for the worse. The people to whom my mom owed money showed up at our house. Their threats sent shivers down my spine. They demanded the money we owed them, and the pressure was unbearable. That night, as I lay awake, I knew I had to make a tough decision. After much contemplation, I made a choice that I never thought I would. I decided to agree to Nicholas's proposal and become his fake girlfriend. It was a drastic step, and it went against everything I believed in. But desperation and the need to help my family pushed me to this point. I hoped that this decision would provide a solution to our financial woes and free my family from the clutches of debt. Feeling both nervous and determined, I decided to take up Nicholas's offer. I found his number and asked him to meet me at the same restaurant where we had our earlier conversation. When we met, I got straight to the point. I shared my family's financial struggles and explained that I would agree to his plan, but only for the money. I laid down a few rules for our fake relationship. I insisted that while we had to appear convincing in front of others, we shouldn't cross any lines when we were alone. Nicholas seemed surprisingly understanding and agreed to my terms. He even handed over some of the money we had agreed upon, which I felt a mix of relief and guilt about. With the money, I paid off the entire debt that had been weighing my family down. The relief on my mom's face was evident, but she also looked puzzled. She asked me where I had gotten the money from, and I hesitated for a moment. Then I told her that a friend had helped me out, not wanting to go into too much detail. As I navigated this new chapter, I couldn't help but feel conflicted. While the financial burden had been lifted, I was now entangled in a fake relationship that was way out of my comfort zone. But my family's well-being was my top priority, and I was determined to make this work for them. The next day, Nicholas took me to his house. It felt strange being there, knowing what we were pretending. He gathered his family and made an announcement that I was his girlfriend and he was really serious about me. He said he wanted to spend more time with me and that he was only loyal to me. He assured them that he wasn't spending time with other girls anymore. His dad, who was also my boss, looked at me and asked if Nicholas was telling the truth. I nodded and said yes. I felt a bit nervous, but I wanted to play my part convincingly. Nicholas's mom was really kind. She walked up to me and gave me a warm hug. She encouraged me to stick around and help Nicholas focus on his career. It was both comforting and surreal to receive such support from his family, even though our relationship was far from real. As the days went by, Nicholas and I spent more and more time together. He took me on a vacation with his friends, which felt both exciting and strange. Some of the girls in his group seemed jealous of me. They had been trying hard to impress Nicholas, but he seemed to only have eyes for me. During that trip, I got to know a different side of Nicholas. He was kind, funny, and surprisingly humble. It was like he was a different person when it was just the two of us. One day, Nicholas called me, but my mom picked up the phone. She asked him who he was, and he told her he was my boyfriend. My mom, in her usual straightforward way, invited him over for dinner. I was hesitant, but eventually, I called him and invited him for dinner. As we sat down for dinner, my mom seemed to be taken with Nicholas. After he left, she told me in the kitchen that she thought he really cared about me. I nodded, even though deep down, I knew our relationship wasn't real. Nicholas and I spent some quiet time in my backyard. And then, he confessed something to me that left me shocked. I couldn't believe my ears. It was something so unexpected, that I felt my heart racing. If you want to know what Nicholas confessed to me, you'll have to watch the next part of the story.